The story begins in a world transformed by the advent of awakening. In a desolate, frozen landscape, powerful individuals gathered. Their focus was the Death Den, a top-tier S-rank dungeon, home to an ancient entity. This dungeon, the first to appear on planet Azure, remained unconquered for decades, its entrance littered with the skeletons of countless masters who never returned. However, today was different. A warrior named Su Ming had challenged the Death Den alone. After a fierce battle, he emerged victorious, having slain the dungeon's god-tier monster. But at the exit, exhausted, he was not met with praise. Instead, he was ambushed by men who were once his allies. They surrounded him, their intentions hostile. One mockingly told Su Ming to stop resisting and hand over the divine artifact he had just acquired. Another declared his fate sealed, sarcastically calling him a hero of humanity and promising a quick death if he surrendered. Su Ming, his body crackling with energy, understood their plan. He realized they had waited for him to clear the dungeon to steal the powerful artifact. He questioned if this had been their plan from the beginning. From the traders, a blonde-haired man named Zhang Tang stepped forward, drawing his sword, which pulsed with blue lightning. He officially confronted his former friend, demanding the divine artifact and appealing to their past friendship by offering to spare Su Ming's life in exchange for it. Smirking, Zhang Tang boasted he would simply destroy what little power Su Ming had left. Holding his own blazing red sword, Su Ming lamented his blindness. He had treated these men like brothers since they were young, fighting alongside them for years, never suspecting their poisonous nature. Filled with the bitterness of betrayal, he decided not to go down quietly. He raised his weapon, unleashing a massive eruption of red and purple energy from the divine artifact, causing a great explosion. Standing defiantly, Su Ming challenged his former comrades, telling them that if they wanted the Ring of Tao Defiance, they would have to try and take it, but he doubted any of them were strong enough. The immense energy stunned his former allies. One of Zhang Tang's men grew impatient, urging the group to kill Su Ming quickly. Zhang Mang advised restraint, warning against recklessness while Su Ming was wielding the artifact. As the standoff continued, a new figure descended from the sky, calling Su Ming's name. He looked up in surprise as a pink-haired woman named Xiao Man flew towards him. She embraced him tightly, explaining she had heard someone was plotting against him and had come because she was worried. Su Ming reassured her, telling her everything was all right and that their enemies were no match for him. Yet he wondered how his enemies had managed to track him so precisely. As he pondered this, Zhang Tang smirked knowingly. In that moment, Su Ming felt a sharp pain in his back. Xiaoman had stabbed him, whispering that she was the one who revealed his whereabouts. Shocked, Su Ming stared at her as a red magic circle glowed on her hand where she held the dagger. He couldn't comprehend why she, of all people, would do this. Across the battlefield, Zhang Tang shouted in triumph, declaring the final catalyst was in place. He then commanded the activation of an imprisonment formation. Instantly, a massive red sigil materialized in the sky above Su Ming, trapping him. From the wound, glowing red chains erupted, wrapping around his body and suppressing his energy. He recognized the curse mark as belonging to Ren Xiaoman and realized she must have been plotting his betrayal for a long time. Zhang Tang walked over and stood beside Xiaoman, draping his arm around her. He mockingly explained the imprisonment formation was specially prepared for him and would prevent him from channeling his power. Xiaoman added cruelly that she was only ever with Zhang Tang. She coldly informed Su Ming his only purpose was to be a tool. Because of his rare 9-star talent, they needed him to acquire the divine artifact for them. Broken and betrayed, Su Ming collapsed to his knees, screaming in rage and anguish. With Su Ming bound and powerless, Zhang Tang ordered his men to kill him and seize the artifact. They charged forward, weapons glowing, ready to strike. But just as they were about to reach him, the ground erupted. A massive skeletal hand burst forth, followed by a wave of skeletal warriors that intercepted the attackers, shielding Su Ming. Su Ming looked on in shock, wondering who had come to his aid. The rescuer was a woman with light purple hair and a hooded cloak. Su Ming recognized her as Ji Yao. A necromancer, she landed between Su Ming and his enemies, holding a powerful staff. She urged him not to give up, determined to prevent the villains from getting the artifact. Zhang Tong scoffed at her arrival, dismissing her as another person come to die. He boasted that with dozens of masters on his side, not even the great emperor could save Su Ming now. His men clashed with Ji Yao's undead summons. Zhang Tong, enraged, charged directly at Ji Yao, declaring anyone who stood in his way would die. As Ji Yao fought, one of Zhang Tong's men warned her to watch her flank, but it was a feint. The warning was a distraction, and she turned in shock just as Zhang Tong closed in. He swung his lightning-wreathed weapon at her, telling his classmate not to hold his actions against him. Su Ming, still trapped, could only watch in horror and scream her name as the attack connected. With Ji Yao incapacitated, Zhang Tong saw his chance. He told Su Ming his concern for someone else was misplaced and that it was now his turn to die. He then plunged his glowing blue blade deep into Su Ming's chest. Leaning in, Zhang Tong offered a final, cruel choice: hand over the artifact, and he might spare his pathetic life. But Su Ming had one last act of defiance. Gripping the magical chains, blood pouring from his mouth, he looked at his betrayers with pure hatred. He called them absolute monsters as a terrifying red and black energy began to build within him. In a final, desperate gambit, Su Ming unleashed a self-destructive ability, God-tier technique, Annihilation Burst. A cataclysmic explosion erupted from his body, forcing Zhang Tang and Ren Xiaoman to retreat in alarm. In the aftermath, the battlefield was quiet. Su Ming, mortally wounded, reached out, whispering Ji Yao's name. He crawled to her side, cradling her injured body, filled with regret, asking why she came for him when he had failed her so many times. Ji Yao, with a faint, peaceful smile, reached up to touch his face, telling him that if this was their end, they should die together. As his life drained away, Su Ming found a final surge of strength. His sword materialized and plunged into the ground before him, a declaration against his enemies. Holding Ji Yao's body close, Su Ming, the Godslayer, swore a solemn oath. He proclaimed that if he were to be reborn, he would hunt down Ren Xiaoman and Zhang Tang and tear them to pieces. His betrayers watched from a distance, confused. Then a look of shocked realization dawned on Zhang Tang's face. He understood Su Ming's desperate plan. He was going to take the divine artifact with him to his death, dragging it into the abyss of the Death Den so they could never have it. With his final vow made, Su Ming told them that if they wanted the divine artifact, they would have to come and get it. He then leaped off the cliff, clutching Ji Yao, and fell into the chaotic energy below. In his hand, the ring of Tao Defiance shone with a brilliant, blinding golden light. The world dissolved into whiteness. Su Ming's hand went limp as if life had finally left him, but then his consciousness returned. He found himself not in an abyss, but looking up at a clear blue sky and a familiar school building, bewildered. His confusion deepened as he heard a voice over a microphone. An announcer was declaring the results of the 127th Awakening Ceremony at Xuanjing First Academy. A student named Wang Qiang had successfully awakened, but his new class was Enchanter, a non-combat lifestyle class. Su Ming, now a young student, stood amongst a crowd of teenagers. He overheard others commenting that the school's luck seemed bad this year. The words "awakening ceremony" struck him. A familiar feeling washed over him as he realized with utter shock that he had traveled back in time. He was 18 years old again on the day of his own awakening ceremony. As Su Ming stood amidst the students, his memories of this day returned with perfect clarity. He recognized Wang Qiang, whom he remembered being called Fatty. He recalled that Wang Qiang had also become an enchanter in his previous life, confirming this was not a dream. To further test his memory, he thought about the students next in line. He remembered that Li Songyang would become a 2-star warrior, Chen Yu's awakening would fail, and Song Li would become a battle mage. The events unfolded exactly as he remembered. Li Songyang celebrated his successful awakening as a warrior. He was followed by Chen Yu, who cried in disappointment after his awakening failed, and then by Song Li, who became a battle mage. With every event matching his memory, any doubt Su Ming had was erased. A confident smirk appeared on his face as he fully accepted he had truly been reborn. His expression quickly changed to intense fury as the painful memory of his betrayal by Zhang Tang and Ren Xiaoman flashed in his mind. He felt this second chance must be a gift from heaven, giving him the power to rewrite his past and avenge his regrets. His thoughts were interrupted by a gasp from the crowd. On the stage, a younger version of Zhang Tang was awakening, surrounded by an incredible purple aura. The announcer excitedly declared that Zhang Tang had awakened a rare hidden combat class, Demon Puppet Warrior, with a powerful 8-star innate attribute. The students buzzed with excitement, commenting that such a powerful awakening was expected from the young master of the prestigious Zhang family. Hearing this, Su Ming could only stare at his future enemy with cold, burning hatred. As the announcer celebrated the school's new genius, Su Ming felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned and was shocked to see a young, healthy Ji Yao in a school uniform. She told him she had been searching for him. Seeing his stunned expression, she asked if something was wrong. Overwhelmed, he quickly composed himself and said he just wanted to congratulate her in advance. This confused Ji Yao, who asked what he was congratulating her for. The image of her dying in his arms flashed before his eyes. A genuine, gentle smile formed on his face. He told her it was nothing and that she would understand soon enough. Filled with sincere relief, he added that it was so good to see her again. Just as he finished speaking, the announcer called for the next student, Ji Yao. Startled, she made her way to the stage. She placed her hand on the celestial stele, a large, ancient artifact crackling with blue energy. As her fingers touched it, a massive surge of power erupted from the stone, engulfing her. The announcer's voice, filled with shock, declared that Ji Yao had awakened a hidden combat class, Necromancer, with a powerful 7-star attribute. The other students were stunned, buzzing with disbelief. Su Ming watched with a calm, knowing smile, thinking that everything was going exactly as he had predicted, and now it was his turn. The announcer called for Su Ming. As he walked toward the stage, Ji Yao wished him luck. The other students were not so optimistic, whispering that it would be impossible for a third hidden class to appear, especially for an orphan like Su Ming. The scene then shifts to provide context. It is planet Azure within the Dragon Nation, a world ruled by the powerful Awakened. Decades ago, the advent of awakening occurred. Since then, every person, upon turning 18, participates in a ceremony to become one of the awakened. These individuals have fundamentally changed the world, possessing the power to bend reality and gain immense wealth. However, this power comes at a price. The awakened must constantly face endless challenges, confronting vicious beasts and exploring terrifying, monster-filled dungeons. As he walked towards the celestial stele, Su Ming reflected on his past life. He remembered that as an orphan, he had relied on stipends and scholarships. On the day of his first awakening ceremony, he was blessed by heaven. A magnificent phenomenon had descended, and he awakened an incredibly rare 9-star innate attribute, along with a legendary class known as the God Slayer. Now, on the stage in his second life, he was determined to change his fate. He reached his hand out towards the awakening artifact, vowing that today he would make everyone see him in a new light. As he did, a massive surge of purple and pink energy erupted, creating a spectacular phenomenon in the sky. The announcer stared in disbelief, wondering if this incredible surge could signify the birth of a genius with a 9-star attribute or even higher. Ji Yao and the other students were equally stunned. Su Ming reached out, ready to feel the familiar surge of runes from his original awakening. But this time, something was different. A glowing blue sigil appeared on his chest, and from it, the divine artifact he had died with, the Ring of Tao Defiance, materialized. He was completely shocked, realizing the ring had somehow traveled back in time with him. Before he could process this, another unexpected event occurred. A strange sensation spread through his body, and a holographic screen appeared. A system notification declared that the Ultimate Godslayer class system was successfully binding to him. It then announced that the system had assigned him a brand new class, and his awakening was successful. But instead of his former class, he had been granted something far greater, a mythic class called the Sword God. Su Ming could only stare in utter astonishment, questioning the existence of a mythic class and the new, powerful title he had just received. The immense red energy from Su Ming's awakening left everyone speechless. The announcer, shocked, wondered what kind of class could create such a phenomenon. In the crowd, students debated what it could mean. One worried that if it was a non-combat class, Su Ming would be doomed. Zhang Tang dismissed this, stating that with such a powerful vision, it couldn't be a lifestyle class. Yet, as he watched, sweat ran down his face from the overwhelming pressure of Su Ming's energy, so intense he couldn't move. Su Ming stood calmly in the energy storm, processing the information from the golden panel before him. He confirmed his awakened class was the Sword God, different from the God Slayer of his past life. He touched the system interface, which completed an identification scan, confirming his identity as Su Ming. It then displayed his new status. His class was the Sword God, and he possessed a golden talent called Universal Ascension, giving him the ability to elevate or evolve anything. Su Ming was stunned. He realized a golden talent was a rank higher than the legendary 9-star class he had awakened before. A confident smile spread across his face as he understood his new power should far surpass the Godslayer class. Eager to see his new abilities, he opened the skill interface. His excitement turned to shock. The skill screen showed 0 progress and a single message: "No abilities have been awakened." Su Ming was furious. He grabbed the holographic panel, yelling internally about how a golden rank talent could possibly come without a single skill. While Su Ming was preoccupied, the crowd grew restless, confused about the delay. Finally, the announcer called out, asking if he had finished his awakening. Su Ming stared at the skillless interface in fury. He couldn't believe that after awakening a supposedly god-tier class, he had no abilities. He wondered if the system was messing with him. Suddenly, the panel displayed a new message, stating it had received his feedback and would resume guidance. A new prompt directed his attention to the ring of Tao Defiance hovering in front of him. Confused, he looked at the ring as it began to glow. The system then announced it had successfully identified the divine artifact. As soon as the ring was identified, the system panel shone brightly, and a massive pillar of golden light erupted from Su-ming's position, shooting into the sky. The powerful shockwave blasted outward, forcing the announcer, who was also the Academy's principal, to brace himself. High above the celestial stele, a massive, glowing, multicolored star materialized with the number 10 at its center. The principal's eyes went wide. He stammered in disbelief, recognizing the symbol for a 10-star innate attribute. His voice boomed through the microphone, announcing Su-ming had awakened a 10-star hidden class, Swordmaster. The crowd erupted in chaos, shouting about the heaven-defying talent of a 10-star attribute, a level reserved for the nation's top scorers. Zhang Tong stared in stunned silence, while another student remarked that he thought Zhang Tong's 8-star awakening was insane, but Su-ming had just revealed a maxed-out 10-star attribute. The principal, beaming, declared it was a banner year for the Academy. Not only did they have multiple hidden classes, but now a Heaven's Chosen with a 10-star attribute. He admitted that while the Swordmaster class wasn't top tier, with a 10-star innate talent, Su-ming's future potential would be limitless. As a reward, the principal announced he would personally gift Su-ming a full set of cultivation-aiding items. However, not everyone was optimistic. Whispers of disappointment spread. Some students called it a waste of talent, explaining that the Swordmaster was a bottom-tier class. They elaborated that it was a mediocre jack-of-all-trades class, forced to train in both ranged and close combat, splitting focus between physical and magical attacks, making it a textbook underpowered class. Other students laughed at his misfortune, mocking the disappointing outcome of a 10-star talent paired with such a lame class. A few tried to defend him, suggesting that with enough hard work, a Swordmaster could become a reliable damage dealer, and with Su-ming's talent, he could surely pull it off. But the cynics shut them down, arguing the class requires twice the effort for the same results, and that he'd be lucky to clear a beginner dungeon. On the stage, Su-ming overheard their dismissive words. He turned his head slightly, his eyes shadowed, thinking about how they all considered his Swordmaster class to be worthless. As the crowd continued to murmur, Ji Yao ran up to Su-ming. With a bright smile, she congratulated him. Su-ming returned the sentiment. Ji Yao then encouraged him to ignore the other's nonsense, because awakening a 10-star talent was incredible. She acknowledged the Swordmaster class might be weak early on, but she was sure that with his talent, it wouldn't be a problem. Su-ming gave her a warm smile and thanked her, reassuring her he wasn't letting their comments get to him. He then added cryptically that their underestimation was exactly what he wanted, which left Ji Yao confused. Their conversation was interrupted as the announcer called for the next student. The crowd cheered as Ren Xiaoman, the school's most popular girl, walked forward. Zhang Tang was seen encouraging her. Ji Yao commented on her popularity, but Su-ming remained silent. Instead of watching, Su-ming turned and began to walk away. Ji Yao called out, confused, reminding him the ceremony wasn't over. Su-ming replied coldly, without looking back, that he wasn't interested. As he walked away, painful memories of his past life flooded his mind. He remembered how Ren Xiaoman had used him, only to betray and kill him without hesitation. He recalled the vow he had made as he died and steeled his resolve for revenge in this new life. Later, Su-ming walked through the city, observing that the world seemed unchanged from his memories. However, he knew some things were different. Besides his new class, he checked his system and discovered a skill called total concealment. This legendary skill allowed him to hide or rewrite information about his equipment, class, and other skills. He recognized it as one of 4 skills he had brought back from his previous life. This realization triggered another memory, the glowing ring of Tao Defiance. He looked at his hands in shock, finally understanding the divine artifact had truly followed him back in time. As Su-ming contemplated the ring, the system panel lit up again. It announced it was loading the divine artifact. As the ring was integrated, a new message appeared. Su-ming had inherited a portion of the skills from his old God Slayer class. He looked on in shock, questioning how it was possible to gain skills from his past life's class when his new class was the Sword God. A detailed status screen materialized, showing his name, Su-ming, level 1, with balanced base stats. His class was confirmed as the mythic, world-unique Sword God, and his talent was Universal Ascension. The skills section now listed 4 abilities: Godslayer's Blade, Total Concealment, Shadow Step, and Insightful Eye. With this new information, Su-ming began to formulate a plan. He thought of an old proverb, A man is innocent, but carrying a treasure makes him a target. To avoid being used by others, and because he was not yet strong enough, he knew he had to be careful. While his 10-star talent was impossible to hide, he decided he must conceal all information about his true mythic class, the Sword God. He vowed to seize this second chance and not repeat his past mistakes. He knew from past experience that the beginner dungeon challenge would arrive on the second day after the awakening ceremony. With his knowledge and skills, Su Ming was confident the beginner dungeon would be no challenge. His goal was to level up faster than anyone else and get better gear. To do that, he decided to challenge the dungeon's hardest boss right from the start. But first, he needed a decent weapon. Meanwhile, in a luxurious room in a tall skyscraper named Palace, a different scene unfolded. Jiang Tang and Ren Xiaoman were together. Ren Xiaoman teased Jiang Tang for bringing her to such a place right after the ceremony. Jiang Tang, irritated, told her not to mention the ceremony, complaining that Su Ming had stolen his thunder. Ren Xiaoman, however, was already scheming. She told him not to be mad, explaining that even though Su Ming was just a swordmaster, his awakening attribute was incredibly high. She assured him Su Ming would have plenty of value for them to use later. Intrigued, Jiang Tang asked what she meant. Ren Xiaoman smiled slyly and showed him something on her phone. As Jiang Tang looked at it, his expression shifted from annoyance to surprise. Ren Xiaoman explained her plan with a cold, calculating look. She was confident that if she dangled a little bait for Su Ming, he would take it. Then, just like before, they could use him for their own purposes. Following his plan, Su Ming arrived at a massive skyscraper that housed a weapons market. He took an elevator up to the 12th floor, where he was greeted by an employee at the Weapons Emporium. As he walked through, he observed the place was filled with newly awakened students prepping for the novice dungeon trial. He overheard some lamenting their lack of money, realizing they would have to slave away in dungeons for a decent weapon. Su Ming's attention was drawn to a crowd gathered around a specific display. They were admiring a glowing blue sword called the Tyrant's Frost Blade, a diamond-rank weapon said to be forged by a high-level greatsword class player. The crowd marveled at its power, which could supposedly freeze a monster's blood, but were also daunted by its price of 1 million advent coins. As they expressed their awe, Su Ming smirked to himself. He remembered from his past life that this weapon was a fake, and the merchants selling them would eventually be arrested. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice. He turned to see a well-dressed woman with short gray hair, flanked by 2 bodyguards. She asked if he was Su Ming, and he, in turn, asked who she was. The woman introduced herself as Jiang Lan, vice director of the Jiang'an Group, and handed him her business card. Su Ming took the card, stating he didn't think he knew her. Jiang Lan ignored his comment and, loud enough for others to hear, announced that on behalf of the Jiang'an Group, she would be covering all his expenses for the day. She then told him she hoped he could do her a favor. When Su Ming asked what kind of favor, she instructed a bodyguard to show him a photo. The picture was of a young, smiling girl with her eyes hidden, surrounded by white flowers. Jiang Lan explained the girl was her younger sister, Jiang Yunqing, who also attended his school and had just awakened. She revealed she had already investigated his awakening and was aware of his 10-star talent. She reasoned that with his power, the novice dungeon would be no challenge for him. She reminded him only the newly awakened could enter, and then made her request. She wanted him to team up with her sister and protect her so she could safely complete the trial. After a moment, Su Ming flatly refused, saying he wasn't interested. As he walked away, Jiang Lan was left in shock. She shouted after him, offering him his pick of any weapon in the store if he would agree, but her offer was met with silence. Furious, she thought to herself how a broke student who just got lucky could have the right to refuse her. Just as Jiang Lan was fuming, Su Ming stopped. With a calm expression, he turned back and said, "Is that so?" He then pointed at the most expensive weapon in the store and declared he would take the Tyrant's Frost Blade, the fake sword worth 1 million advent coins. Jiang Lan was enraged, believing he was deliberately trying to extort her. She accused him of making things difficult and questioned if he really thought someone of his status was worth 1 million coins. Su Ming simply reminded her she had offered him his pick of any weapon. He told her if she wasn't willing to follow through, the deal was off. With a confident smile, he then offered her a piece of advice, telling her to let her sister know she should prepare with all her effort, implying there are things wealth can't buy. Surprisingly, Jiang Lan's anger faded, replaced by an intrigued smirk. She found Su Ming interesting and admitted to herself she had overstepped. She turned and left with her bodyguards. The onlookers were stunned, whispering about how that student had just played the powerful people from the Jiang'an Group. As they left, Su Ming's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He looked and saw it was from Ren Xiaoman. The message was exactly as he remembered. She asked if he had always liked her, claimed to have had a change of heart, and asked him to meet her on the roof of the academic building that night. Suming noted with cold amusement that even though he hadn't awakened as the Godslayer, Ren Xiaoman's manipulative tactics hadn't changed. Remembering his vow for vengeance, he replied with a simple message, agreeing to meet her. With that dealt with, Suming turned his attention back to finding a weapon. He approached a shop assistant and asked about a display of jagged, rock-like objects called sword stones. The assistant explained these were weapon stones that had a chance of yielding a silver rank weapon, but she cautiously warned him it was all based on probability, and most stones only contained the lowest grade weapons. To her surprise, Su Ming told her that was exactly what he wanted. He explained that rather than spending a fortune on a silver weapon that would soon become obsolete, it was a much better bet to gamble on getting one from a cheap stone. However, as he looked at the stones, he thought that for him, it wasn't really a gamble at all. The truth was, he could actually see the data inside the stones. This was thanks to another skill he had brought back from his past life, the Eye of Insight. A system panel explained this legendary skill gave his eyes the power to see the true nature of things. Using this ability, he confidently picked up one of the stones. He knew a regular silver weapon would cost hundreds or thousands of advent coins, but by using his skill to find one in a cheap stone, it was an incredible value for a broke student like himself. As Su Ming sat with the weapon stone, his actions drew the attention of some other students. One of them, a blonde-haired boy, recognized him as the kid who had just turned down the powerful Zhongun group. The boy and his two friends approached Su Ming, sneering. The blonde boy mocked him for holding a garbage weapon stone, laughing at the idea that Su Ming would turn down a freebie from a major corporation just to gamble on a piece of junk. They called Su Ming an idiot. Su Ming, however, was unfazed. He recognized the blonde bully as Yang Ding, a rich brat he remembered from his past life who got his kicks from bullying underclassmen. Finding the situation a pain, Su Ming decided to have some fun with them. He calmly turned to Yang Ding and proposed a bet, 5,000 advent coins, that he could get a silver rank weapon out of the stone he was holding. After a moment of stunned silence, Yang Ding and his friends erupted in laughter, thinking Su Ming was an idiot. Yang Ding mocked him, saying there was a 99.99% chance the stone was trash and that he'd never met someone so eager to throw their money away. Su Ming simply replied that they would soon see who was really wasting their money. Yang Ding eagerly accepted the bet, and a crowd of onlookers gathered. Su Ming declared he would open the stone right then and there, warning the bully not to back out. Yang Ding just laughed, telling him to worry about the 5,000 coins he was about to owe. With everyone watching, Su Ming activated his Eye of Insight. His vision shifted, allowing him to see the glowing red sword hidden within the stone. With a confident shout, he smashed the stone open. A brilliant red light erupted from the shattered rock, and a powerful sword flew out. Yang Ding, his friends, and the entire crowd could only stare in utter disbelief as Su Ming calmly caught the weapon by its hilt. A system notification appeared, identifying his new weapon, a black iron crimson edge sword, a low-grade silver weapon with a special affix called Crimson Drinker, which allowed it to absorb the blood of monsters to heal its wielder. Standing amidst the stunned silence, Su Ming held his new sword, admiring it as a fine weapon. He then thought with a cold, determined look that this new sword would be perfect for his date with Ren Xiaoman that night. Yang Ding and his friends stood in stunned silence, unable to believe Su Ming had pulled a silver rank weapon from the stone. Su Ming, holding the sword, casually remarked that it wasn't bad, particularly its lifesteal ability, noting it would eliminate his need for a healer in the upcoming dungeon trial. A system panel confirmed the weapon was a silver rank black steel sword with plus 10% lifesteal. As Yang Ding stared in panic, Su Ming pointed the blade at him, reminding the bully that a bet was a bet and the 5,000 advent coins were now his. Defeated, Yang Ding transferred the money. Storming off, he shouted that he wouldn't forget this humiliation. Su Ming simply advised him not to make such careless bets in the future. The shop assistant looked on in amazement, realizing it had been years since anyone had pulled a real weapon from one of their stones. With his winnings, Su Ming walked back to the counter for a scabbard, asking if 5,000 coins would be enough. The flustered assistant confirmed it was. He purchased a golden, ornate, silver-rank scabbard that reduced weapon durability loss by 50%. Su Ming was satisfied, knowing it would significantly reduce the sword's wear and tear. As he held his sheathed sword, a system notification popped up, asking if he wanted to activate a hidden function called Weapon Manifestation. He decided against it, thinking it was not yet time. With a smirk, he thought about how he still needed to take this new weapon and raise its rank. Later, walking through a park, Su Ming reflected on his situation. He acknowledged that after awakening as the sword god, he lacked a single usable class skill. However, his class came with an incredibly powerful primal talent: universal ascension. This unique talent let him upgrade the quality of any item one time, making his mythic class truly worthy of its rank. Holding his sword, he tested this power. A system notification announced Universal Ascension was activated. The ascension was successful, and the Crimson Drinker effect was obtained. The sword began to glow with a powerful red aura. A final notification displayed the weapon's new status: a Crimson Black Steel sword of high silver rank. Its Crimson Drinker ability was enhanced to drain the target's blood on contact, and it gained a new skill: Bloodthirst, granting a temporary +5 boost to all stats for 30 seconds after killing a monster. Su Ming was pleased with the upgrade. With preparations complete, he activated the hidden weapon manifestation, confident the beginner dungeon the next day would be no challenge. Later that night, Su Ming arrived on the rooftop of the academic building. He stood silhouetted against the futuristic cityscape, his new sword in hand. Ren Xiaoman was already there. She turned with a seductive smile and greeted him, playfully chiding him for being late. Her smile vanished instantly. Without a word, Su Ming swung his sword at her. She screamed and barely evaded the attack as the blade plunged into the concrete ledge where she had been. She stared in disbelief, asking what he was doing. With a cold, unwavering gaze, Su Ming told her he had come for revenge. A painful memory from his past life flashed before him, the moment of his death, holding the dying Ji Yao as Ren Xiaoman looked on without remorse. Ren Xiaoman was bewildered and angry. She demanded to know what he was talking about, reminding him that she had just accepted his confession. She held up her phone, showing a message history where he had told her he liked her and asked her out. She yelled in frustration, pointing out he was the one who wanted to date her. She couldn't understand why he was now trying to hurt her. Su Ming simply stood there, his expression hard and silent. He looked at her with a cold, knowing smirk. He told her that while she was right about the confession, that had happened in a past life. His mind drifted back, replaying their relationship. He remembered her as the most popular girl in school, while he was just a lonely orphan. He recalled the day after the first awakening ceremony. Dejected, he was approached by her, who, with a kind smile, asked if he was all right. From that day, he felt he had someone's affection. This led to his text message confession, their romantic dates, and their intimacy. But that happy past was shattered by the memory of a photograph of her and Zhang Tang together, a symbol of her ultimate betrayal. Back in the present, Su Ming's face contorted with rage as he shouted that it was all a lie. He furiously accused her, declaring that he knew everything about her shady dealings with Zhang Tang and that she had only been using him. Ren Xiaoman was completely shocked, stammering that he was talking nonsense and trying to deny his accusations. But Su Ming was relentless. He told her she knew very well whether he was lying or not, and that her poised, beautiful persona was a fraud. He then leaned in, his voice filled with venom, and told her that her true self was nothing but a vain, shameless person. At this, Ren Xiaoman's composure completely shattered. Her face twisted in fury as she dropped her act. She screamed at him, asking what he could possibly know and calling him an orphan. She venomously spat that if his talent hadn't been worth something, he would never have even gotten the chance to speak to her. She then threatened him, shouting that neither she nor Zhang Tang would let him get away with insulting her. Su Ming met her threats with a dismissive smirk. He challenged her to bring it on, but suggested she should be more worried about how this little affair would affect her carefully crafted, pure as jade, public image. This final taunt pushed her over the edge. Seething with fury, she lunged for the sword Su Ming had left in the concrete and swung it at him. As the blade flew towards him, Su Ming thought to himself that her actions were just like in his last life. However, this time he was prepared. Just as the sword was about to strike, tendrils of red energy erupted from the blade, stopping it in midair and leaving Ren Xiaoman completely shocked. Su Ming explained that he saw this coming, knowing her penchant for backstabbing. A system notification confirmed the activation of his weapon's Crimson Drinker ability. The red energy tendrils surged from the blade and wrapped around Ren Xiaoman. Su Ming revealed his trap. The moment he targeted her with his weapon's ability, her fate was sealed. The tendril shot forward, striking her directly in the face. She let out a piercing scream of agony, crying out that her face was ruined. As she crumpled to the ground, Su Ming stood over her and coldly told her that she had brought this upon herself. He was about to declare this was the beginning of his revenge, but she interrupted, screaming that she was going to have Zhang Tang kill him. Unfazed, Su Ming simply recalled his sword, which dematerialized into his inventory. He then turned and walked away, telling her to go and tell Zhang Tang that he could come for him whenever he was ready. He declared that today's strike was his severance. As he left her crying on the rooftop, he thought that this blade had also served to cut away the affection he had once treasured so deeply. Later, he received a notification on his phone. It was a gift from the academy. The message was from Principal Wang, congratulating him on his awakening and providing him with a reward package to help him prepare for the beginner dungeon. The package contained 1 fortification pill, a combat gear package, and 10,000 advent coins. The next day began at 6 a.m. Su Ming held the fortification pill from the principal. He acknowledged the generosity but suspected it was pity for awakening a weak swordmaster class, despite his 10-star talent. He ate the pill, immediately complaining it tasted terrible. The bad taste was forgotten as he was engulfed in a golden aura. A system notification shocked him. The pill had granted him plus 10 constitution and 100 experience points, enough to instantly promote him to level 2 and grant him 10 free attribute points. As his status screen updated, a new passive talent activated, Innate Sword Body. This talent meant he had innately formed a sword in his heart, allowing him to learn any sword-type skill while ignoring their usual restrictions. Su Ming was pleased, realizing that as expected of his 10-star talent, he could learn abilities just by leveling up. Filled with new confidence, he smirked and declared he would show everyone his true power in the novice dungeon. He arrived at the Zhuanjing First Academy's novice dungeon area, a bustling plaza filled with students and portals. A group of his classmates approached him. The same students who had mocked his class now eagerly asked to team up. They praised his 10-star talent and the principal's gift, suggesting the dungeon would be simple. They offered their own classes to support the swordmaster's supposed weaknesses, hoping to ride his coattails to a higher score. Su Ming was disgusted by their hypocrisy, thinking about how they had looked down on him the day before. He bluntly turned them down, saying he already had a team. His words were overheard by Ji Yao, who rushed over in surprise, asking when he had formed a team. She explained she had come early specifically to be the first to ask him to team up. Su Ming, caught off guard, tried to explain. He told her his goals were not for the usual rewards, and he was worried she might get hurt. He then leaned in and whispered his true intention. He planned to challenge the dungeon alone. Just as Ji Yao was processing this, they were interrupted by a blue-haired student with a confident smile. He introduced himself as Yan Zhe, a 9-star demon hunter ranger, and formally invited Su Ming to his team. Su Ming recognized Yan Zhe from his past life and without hesitation flatly refused his offer. Before Yan Zhe could press the issue, Ji Yao stepped in. She put her arm around Su Ming's shoulders and announced he had already teamed up with her, so they should all stop bothering him. The other students, including Yan Zhe, apologized and left. As the crowd dispersed, Su Ming looked at Ji Yao with gratitude, thinking how reliable she was. As Su Ming stood with Ji Yao, he glanced at a clock, noting the dungeon's start time was approaching. Right on cue, a massive blue portal swirled to life, and a voice announced the 127th Novice Dungeon Challenge had officially begun. From the portal, a holographic broadcast of Principal Wang appeared. Looking like he had just woken up, he apologized for oversleeping. He explained the rules of the mandatory one-day trial. Every student was pre-registered, and inside, they would earn points based on their contributions. He strongly advised them to form teams to increase their chances of survival and complete the challenge within the day. As the principal spoke, Ji Yao turned to Su Ming, only to find he had vanished. She looked around, confused. Before anyone could react, Principal Wang officially declared the dungeon open. In that instant, a figure shot past the other students and dove straight into the portal. The crowd erupted in shock, shouting that someone had already gone in and quickly identifying the lone challenger as the 10-star student, Su Ming. Upon entering the dungeon, Su Ming was hit with nostalgia. He remembered how in his first life he had been both scared and excited. A powerful voice then echoed, welcoming the novices. It explained the dungeon was a place of danger and opportunity, and to leave, they needed to defeat the regular boss. However, it also hinted at a higher difficulty method for greater rewards. With a determined look, Su Ming declared his new goal. In this life, he would choose the most difficult challenge and slay the dungeon's ultimate hidden boss. He found himself in a lush, moonlit jungle, identified by the system as the Raging Tide Forest, a level F zone. He immediately noted the map for the novice dungeon changed every year, making this location different from his past life. He also knew the spawn point was random for every challenger, meaning route planning had to be done on the fly. This also meant the monsters he would encounter would be different, adding another layer of unpredictability. As Su Ming began to explore, he quickly encountered a formidable foe, a massive, sentient tree monster with a head of roaring fire and a menacing carved face. He knew from his past life that this monster, while immobile, would use its vines to drag its targets into its fiery maw. However, his goal was not to fight every monster. He was focused on the hidden boss. Therefore, he decided it was best to avoid such difficult enemies. He looked at a holographic map, plotting his course. He thought about how his reason for rushing in first was to give himself a head start. He needed to scout the new layout and find the items required to summon the hidden boss. While the map changed every year, he knew the fundamental strategy to trigger the boss fight would remain the same. He had to act quickly before more students arrived and made it harder to collect the necessary items. With his plan set, he leaped into action, bounding through the dense forest. Sometime later, at 7:30 a.m., another group of students entered the dungeon. A girl with light blue hair and her two male teammates looked around the quiet clearing. They noted there were no other challengers nearby and concluded the area should be safe. Their security was shattered when the girl heard a noise in the trees, alerting her team. They looked up just in time to see another student crash through the foliage. The boy, wielding a hammer, landed near them, screaming for help. The newly arrived team could only stare in shock as the source of the chase was revealed. Two giant, monstrous rats with glowing red eyes. Recognizing the bloodthirsty rats, the students' courage failed, and in a panic, they decided to split up and run for their lives. Back in the plaza, the trial's danger became apparent. At 7:31 a.m., a real-time report flashed above the portal, announcing 3 challengers had been devoured by the bloodthirsty rats. The most powerful fallen student was 6-star Li Dabiao. Ji Yao, still trying to form a team, was shocked. Alarmed that a 6-star student had fallen so quickly, she urgently called for everyone to speed up their team formation, shouting that the people inside desperately needed more help. Meanwhile, inside the raging tide forest, the situation was grim. The blue-haired girl who had been chased was running for her life, now alone and injured. In the panic, she had been separated from her teammates and had lost all direction. As she tried to get her bearings, she sensed a new presence. Looking up, she saw the silhouette of a massive, ape-like monster perched in the trees. The creature dropped to the ground, its glowing red eyes glaring down at her with malice. Paralyzed with fear, the girl could only watch as the giant beast leaped towards her. In her final moment, she squeezed her eyes shut and screamed for someone to save her. Suddenly, a flash of red light shot past her. In a stunning display of speed, Su Ming appeared. His crimson black steel sword was a blur as he sliced the ape monster to pieces in seconds.